Hey everybody, Matt
And Mike.
for the IronTrap podcast. So we are doing an audio-only version this week. Just before we start off, we'll remind everybody that we're doing...
So eventually we'll get to the point where we don't have to say this every time.
Yeah, well, I feel like we have a lot going on with the IronTrap world, so need to remind people because we have so much different stuff. So, we now do podcasts every week. We are doing a video version every other week. So this week is an audio only. If you only listen to us in audio, make sure every other week you check out the video versions because Mike usually edits in some interesting photos, depending if it's something that was, previous adventures we did or if it's just reference photos or whatever. It makes it a little more interesting. So this week is audio only.
Yep.
And we got that out of the way. Make sure you subscribe and do all that good stuff on all those platforms.
Yep.
Anything else? Bookkeeping?
Business stuff. Black Friday, we'll be doing a sale this year. Black Friday through Cyber Monday. Matt and I haven't discussed how much. I think we're going to do 15% off. I'm pretty sure. Don't hold us to that, but I'm almost positive. 15% off store-wide merch, parts, whatever. And our calendars will be going live on Black Friday. There's 100 copies.
That's it?
If you want a calendar, get in on it early, because otherwise they're going to sell out. They always do. And we're also potentially doing a pre-order for the first T-shirt we ever released, the Why Don't You Ride With Us shirt. We've been getting a lot of requests to reprint that. So Matt and I talked about it. We're going to do a pre-order only. That's going to go live on Black Friday for the sale only, Friday to Monday. It is a pre-order. I'm going to say this again, a pre-order, which means you place an order. At the end of the week, we will then make an order for all of the shirts, and you will get them around Christmas time.
And for anybody that's not familiar with that shirt, when we first started the channel, I found an old, there's a bunch of old postcards and stuff I have from the teens and 20s that are old automotive related. And I got this idea from one of them that's basically like, why the hell don't you,
Why the devil?
Yeah, why the devil, I forget what it says.
Why the devil don't you ride with us?
Yeah, so it's basically just and then it's a little cartoon, 20s era style cartoon, devil, and he's in a little roadster.
The free tee,
basically the free tee. Our friend Eddie Falk did. He was a tattoo artist, a friend of ours that when we first started the channel, had $0 to do anything. He did it as a favor for us and did that design. It was super cool, but it was really early in the channel, and it was popular. But as soon as we came out with the flathead design, we just let that one go away. But we've had a bunch of people have seen us wearing those in videos and whatever, and asked for us to come back in it. It's a black shirt with like a yellow, kind of like a bright.
It's like a mustard yellow. Almost.
Yeah, it's nice contrast. Very cool, kind of retro type design, like everything we do, kind of retro. So if you're interested, we'll probably put it up on social media when we shortly.
Head to Facebook or Instagram. I'll put up some not teaser photos, a mock-up of the shirt for everyone to refresh everyone's memory. And
also we do a week in the life of video pretty regularly in the warm months. So this one that's going to be coming out next, we'll mention that in that video, and there'll be a visual shot of that in there if you're interested. But pretty cool shirt. Just because of people asking, I also kind of love that shirt, so it'd be nice to get some new ones because mine are wearing out.
Mine are all super tattered.
So it's kind of a, doubly a reason why we're doing it. We're ordering some for ourselves. If we open it up and people can buy some, it's super cool as well. So definitely get on that if you're interested. And that's basically it for kind of bookkeeping as far as...
I also want to mention, with the website, international shipping is not set up because we were having problems with prices being insanely wrong. If you contact us on Black Friday to purchase something and you are internationally, just send us a message and we will give you that 15% off. We'll have to get a custom shipping quote and all that jazz. But it's open to everyone. But if you try to buy parts, international shipping is not set up.
But we will honor it.
Yeah, we'll definitely work with you.
So,
what's today's topic?
Today's topic, like we talk about in a lot of these podcasts, a lot of these ideas just pop up from people we see at shows, comments we get on YouTube videos, all kinds of different stuff. Kind of sometimes give us ideas for this. So one that we get, man, we probably get it in comments, definitely in person at events all the time, and it's not just a quick 2-second answer. So usually I defer I just kind of don't answer the question when we're at events because I don't want to get into a half an hour discussion about it. So today we're going to get into that. So it's kind of a double question that we're going to load together. So people ask us quite often, how do you handle buying these, in bulk or these large estates that we do? How do you price them? How do you go about valuating them and all of that kind of stuff? People seem to be very interested in the thought process behind that. So we're going to talk about that. The second part of that is, which kind of rolls into it together, how do you process all of this stuff when we get a giant box truck load of parts? How do we decide what to do with it, where to put it, what to sell first? So we'll get into a little bit of that as well. Both Mike and I could speak on either halves of those questions.
Yeah, Matt's mostly going to handle the first half, and I'll mostly handle the second half of that question.
Right. But and also probably the first thing I'll get into is people oftentimes ask us, well, how do you get all these leads? How do you find this stuff? How are you always getting good stuff? You're listening to it, you're watching it, you're exposed to it every single day.
Yep.
Basically, from very early on in the YouTube channel, that was kind of one of my angles with doing the channel, or our angles, and also for business, was that we were providing videos that were interesting to watch, and you might learn something a little bit with putting the cars together. But also we're marketing to everyone. So we're marketing to people that are interested in buying parts from us, because we're letting you know in all these videos and podcasts and everything else, yes, we sell antique car parts, specifically early Ford stuff. But then on the flip side, we're also putting ourselves out there that we are buying in bulk. We're not just a guy in his garage putting one car together. Like, we're buying as a business. So because of that, that's how word has gotten out through, we're not going to get super deep into it, but from my world of Eastwood and of different things, I've learned SEO, search engine optimization. So using keywords and things in the titles and stuff of your videos and all your content helps get you on the Googles. The Googles.
That's an official term.
Yes. Gets you kind of ranking on Google, so that basically when someone searches, if your grandfather dies and he has a barn full of old Fords, and you Google, value of 1932 Ford or barn find 32 Ford, whatever it is, variation of that, a lot of times we rank very high, or one of our videos pops up.
Also, inside baseball, Google owns YouTube. So They will push YouTube videos to the top of the search because they're all in the same company. So they promote their stuff first, and we are pretty high in YouTube's rankings for those topics. So then on Google, we also pop at the top with YouTube.
And what's nice about that whole idea and the way we've worked all of this for getting the leads is it allows the person or estate or collector to basically vet us. So they can they find us on Google. A lot of times when these estates contact us, they're like, oh, I found you on Google or whatever on YouTube. I've been watching your videos for 2 months, as we've been dealing with dad stuff or grandpa stuff or whatever, or, however it's working. And they're kind of we prove that we do this regularly, or we're a legit business because we put out videos every week showing us buying the stuff, selling it. We're out there. We're not we're not some dude in his backyard with a pile of parts trying to pretend like we're doing this. We're really doing it. So a lot of times the families and estates and different things, when they come to us, they're already comfortable because they've watched the videos, they know what we're doing. And that's what's there's a double-edged sword with social media and everything nowadays. But that's one of the upsides, I think. These people are able to do their own research, and versus the old days of word of mouth, which also helps us. But word of mouth, you don't really know. It could be one or two people, but by searching us, you can look at the comments. You could see, if we were doing bad business over and over and over again, it would be out there on the internet. So
and the word of the mouth thing is, their grandfather's friend may watch us and they say,
yes,
hey, check out IronTrap. There's a ton of videos there. They help you buy it. They'll buy all the stuff from you. And so it's an online business card essentially.
Yeah.
Instead of just word of mouth, you know, go check out their videos, see how they're serious. They're not a bunch of bullshitters.
We still bullshit,
yes,
but not about
business.
Actually doing business. Yeah. So that's basically how the leads all happen. From the early days when I didn't have a business and I was just buying and selling, for myself, when I had a job at Eastwood, it was.
We were still getting leads back then.
Yeah, I've been getting, and that's a misconception people have. They think that just instantly the YouTube channel is what created all our leads. Some people think that. But I've been like scratching and hunting my whole life. So a lot of my early leads and stuff was just from the old way of doing this, where it was knocking on doors, meeting a guy at the flea market or the swap meet and ask him some questions. And he says, oh, yeah, I got some more stuff. And we've proved it in videos. I mean, one thing that comes to mind that Mike did was the nail head that you got in Moultrie.
Oh, yeah. I just asked an old man if he had a shit ton of Buick parts. I said, do you have any Buick speed parts? I said, not here. And it just snowballed till we followed him home that night and bought a nail head out of his airplane hangar.
Hey guys, it's Matt Clausen, your host of the All Automotive Podcast. I've been in the automotive industry for over 30 years. I've owned my own repair shop for the last 15 years. I was going to write a book, but I started this podcast instead. So come join me for my take on vehicle extended service contracts or what to look for when purchasing a used vehicle. Like and subscribe to the All Automotive Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening now.
So that's the way that early on in the channel that all started. If you're relatively new to the channel during 2020, for fun, Mike and I did the 2020 challenge, where I was trying to, even in those earlier days of the channel, we were trying to show everyone, we were giving away the secrets, so to speak, quote unquote. We were like, we're starting with $20, and by the end of the year, we're going to turn it into this. And it was the rules were no like channel leads. It was all like Facebook Marketplace.
All organic, basically.
Yeah. So, and by the end of that, I bought a car trailer. Mike, I don't remember what you bought.
I didn't end up buying anything. I used the money towards my cabriolet, but spoiler alert, Matt spanked me horrendously and won by tens of thousands of dollars.
But yeah, we showed that. So that in the early days, that's how it happened. And that all compounds. So even now today, we get leads that are local or through people that I've known. And yes, the channel has helped. But some of these deals we're doing, it's a guy that knows a guy that I bought stuff from, like when I was, still working at Eastwood. And this stuff, the word of mouth thing does work. So the leads is a compounded thing. The only way that we get so many large estates like we do is just word of mouth. I mean, at this point, it's funny when I go on Facebook, just log in, I get tagged all the time. Every time there's a post on one of the early Ford groups on Facebook where somebody's like, hey, my friend died, or my friend's moving and he wants to get rid of all his flathead stuff in one shot. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, we always get tagged or mentioned.
And I thoroughly appreciate everyone's enthusiasm. We appreciate that.
It's awesome. So, but I just chuckle sometimes because like I just read one last night where a guy, he bought a property and he has a ton of flathead stuff, has it priced a little high for what the stuff is. And he made another post, lowered his price. And there was like 3 or 4 comments within an hour of each other, people saying you should contact IronTrap, blah, blah, blah. And then there's people talking amongst themselves like, this stuff's kind of like, for what this stuff is, they don't travel that far. And like, I don't even need to go in there. We see all of your comments. We appreciate it. Like that one wasn't something I was interested in. So I didn't want to muddy the waters commenting in their post, but it is very nice because we are able to have people spreading the word. We've had some estates that were just straight off of Facebook that was just a friend or a follower that said, hey, I saw this ad on a group. You guys might be interested. And we purchased the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's worked out.
And we found leads just off Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Just cruising Facebook Marketplace and you see a pile of parts for sale. You ask more questions, and then it's like, oh, it's not just a pile. There's an attic full of stuff too that's also included.
Right.
So there's hardly any secrets to this game. It's just working hard and continuously hunting is the biggest thing.
And it's reputation and time into doing this. So like there's guys that are that don't have YouTube channels, that are just guys who've been doing it forever and buying and selling. And those guys are, if you follow them on Instagram, they're consistently buying good cars. They're buying piles of parts. They're always getting into stuff. Well, if you look, that dude's been doing it for 25 years or maybe sometimes more. So in his neck of the woods, he's the guy. Everybody calls him, and that's why
he has a good reputation.
Yes.
No one has anything ever bad to say about him.
Right. So that's why you see a lot of these people, and we get it a lot where people comment or will come up to us and, they're upset because they can't find those types of leads. Well, if you're sitting at home, feeling sorry for yourself, you're not going to get any leads.
And my favorite one is there's nothing like that ever near us. It's like, oh, we bought a bunch of stuff actually not far from you.
Yeah, we've had that many times at a Hershey or Carlisle or a big show where a guy's like, man, I can't ever find anything. You're like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from so-and-so, Georgia. I'm like, oh, I was like an hour and a half from there, and we bought a barn full of stuff. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know. Well, you gotta look. You gotta get out there. So as far as the finding stuff goes, it's just putting in the time and the work, and we can't say that over and over again enough. And there's enough of this stuff out there. That's why I don't mind doing these podcasts where we're giving out quote unquote secrets, because there really is no secrets. It's just hard work. If you want to make $100,000 a year, you work your ass off buying and selling, you can do it. If you want to make $50 a year, you can also by accident go to the flea market once and make $50. So it just depends on the time and what you want to put into it. And I can respect the people that have no interest in doing the buying and selling, that don't want to deal with it. Well, that's fine, but don't complain because you're buying at retail from us because we went out and hunted for the stuff, or any other person that's selling, and complaining that it's expensive on eBay or at Hershey. Well, these people went out and hunted for it and found it, and that's why you're paying retail.
Yep.
So that's the whole finding it. How do we attack or approach is probably the term.
Yeah.
A large estate or collection, buying it, it's kind of a loaded question. So
because literally every single estate is absolutely different from the next. Every estate we've ever dealt with, none of them are ever the same. They never get handled the same. It's a case by case basis 100% of the time.
And a lot of the times, we go on these adventures or estates, and they're so loose that we don't even know what we're getting, what we're paying, and what exactly is going to happen till the day we show up. So we fly in somewhere, rent a box truck, do this whole deal, and I do numerous phone calls with the person that's handling the items or cars or whatever, and you try and give them the breakdown. And again, with the calling card of having the YouTube channel, we're not pretending that I've always wanted your barn full of stuff for my whole life, and I'm keeping it all, and I'm never going to sell it. There's no sob story. I'm always like, we have a business, we sell retail, I need to buy wholesale. Let's get that out of the way in the beginning. If you're not interested in that type of scenario, then we can end the conversation. So when we do those ones where they're like, it's very, very loose, usually I've kind of had numerous conversations for length with the people, and it's like, look, this is the deal, blah, 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 and you try and get out of people sometimes what they want or what they want for the stuff or how
Which is always a very hard conversation to have. Some people are very cut and dry and say, I want X amount for this. And other time people are like, I don't know. What would you like to give me?
And I'm like, I don't know. What do you have? I don't know. Okay, so we got that out of the way, so nobody fucking knows what
exactly.
I don't know what I'm paying. You don't know what you have. We don't know how this is all going to go.
This is like The Price is Right, where the guy's like, what's the very beginning? $1, Bob.
Yeah. It's like, well, obviously, I want to pay as little as possible, and you want to make as much as possible. Yeah. So how do we meet in the middle?
It's a very interesting dance back and forth.
So generally what I try and do, the first thing is when we get these leads or get these estates or these big purchases, is trying to get photos or a list or wrap our head around how much is there. That's the number one thing, because we get emails and they're almost always extremely broad. Hey, I have a barn full of old Ford stuff. Somebody told me you buy that stuff. Are you interested?
And also, everyone has their own definition of how much stuff there is. So a barn full to one person is very different to a barn full of another person. So sometimes I have a barn full of stuff and it's a small shed. And other times it's a barn full and it's a goddamn warehouse full. So there's very different, everyone has their own estimation of size. So it's, no information makes it impossible to figure out.
Yeah. So usually we try and start off, if it's email or a phone call or whatever, and try and get some kind of photos or better definition or, whatever. A big part of what I do and a big part of our business, and I'd like to think one of the reasons we're kind of successful is over the years I've learned a big part of this business is understanding people and their psyche and what their situation is and what they're going through. So some estates, when we have a conversation, it's like, well, what was Dad like? What was the situation? And sometimes it's a deal where, like Mike said, it's very cut and dry, and the people are like, this property's worth $2.3 million. We don't give a shit about the parts on here, but the new buyer wants the stuff to be gone so we can close on the property. So to them, a barn full of parts that's worth a very fractional amount comparatively, they don't care because they're looking for the big payoff.
The parts are a nuisance, essentially.
Yes, and it's not that we're not taking advantage. We all understand. They say, well, the only way I'm getting rid of this stuff quickly to close on this property is that I give someone like us that is going to buy it at a discounted rate, but we're also going to make it all leave in one easy go, which is something that helps. So sometimes it's like that, which I love those because the people are very transactional, like this is what needs to happen. Blah, blah, blah. We want to cover the taxes for the rest of the year. Taxes are $10,000. That's what I need. And they're like, I know there's way more than that in parts, but to them, being able to pay the taxes for free, quote unquote, is what they want. Other times, it's a very emotional situation where the cars and the parts were a big part of the family or dad or, that the person we're dealing with was around the stuff their whole life, but they can't keep everything, or, every situation is different. The one family member is very emotionally attached to all the stuff, but the other family members want to sell the property and cash in. So their hands being forced to sell everything. So it's very emotional and it's hard. So you have to.
And the more family members you add to the mix,
oh my God,
the worse it gets.
There's always. Yes, when there's a lot of family members, there's always somebody that comes out of the woodwork or one family member that's trying to count every penny and makes it difficult. Not every time, but there is oftentimes many that are like that. But on the emotional ones like that, when I'm trying to price it with them or figure it out, I usually try and understand what are the items that are emotionally hard for them to sell, or maybe Dad, his whole life, or Grandpa, this one engine that's on the stand has some folklore behind it. And it's like, well, Daddy, talk this up, so it's got to be worth a ton of money. And whether it's bullshit or it's reality, I found over the years it's a lot easier, whether it's a car or a single part or a batch of parts, to pay their price. And even sometimes that price is too high. But you're looking at the big picture. So if we can buy everything, and if I have to pay too much or close to retail for a car or a certain engine or whatever, but then they're very easy to deal with everything else, it all washes out in the mix. We also don't nickel and dime people where we have to win on every single item. So if that's what it takes, one that comes to mind is we did the estate in Colorado, the Beasley estate, which was, Lonnie was for anybody that doesn't remember, it was one that we went to where we bought an incredible amount of Oldsmobile overhead valve old speed equipment and engines and stuff. Lonnie had a Model A Roadster nearly his whole life that he kept upgrading. It always had an Olds. And they kept the car, and when we went to the estate, there was the old engine, quote unquote, out of his Roadster that was a crazy built 324 Olds with a 471, chrome everything, smooth, painted, detailed.
Currently sitting on the couch.
Yeah, I'm looking at it like it's a hot chick right now from across the room. I flew out there. So quick little side story. We did an estate in Seattle. and I bought a bunch of speed equipment. I went back for the first trip out there.
Yeah.
I brought Kate out with me, and we bought all those parts. Her and I did some sightseeing, and the agreement was we needed to stop in Colorado on the way back to look at this estate. And Kate had a college friend that lived like in the same city, and it worked out beautifully. Like we flew in, I was going to look at these parts for like an afternoon, and then we were going to spend a day or two with her, her college friend, and it worked out really well. So we went there. I looked at this engine, all this stuff, and from what I understood, the engine was going to be part of the deal. So we get there and we're talking, and the son, who we're kind of dealing with, we came in through a club member friend. So we're finally dealing with the son, looking at everything. I'm drooling over this engine on the engine stand because it's the thing I want out of all this stuff that I want to keep for myself.
I think the drool marks are still on that.
They're probably still on it. And then the son goes, as we're talking through it all, trying to figure out a price and everything and looking at everything, he goes, well, that engine's not included in the sale. So I'm like, it's like somebody punched me in the gut. It's like, what? Are you kidding? Like, I just flew, from Pennsylvania to Seattle to Colorado to look at this stuff. I got an Uber from the airport to you to make a deal on this in person. Like, that was included until, that's not included. That was in Dad's car. And I'm like, well, you have Dad's car right there. You're keeping it. And it's got
an even better blower engine.
Yeah, it's got an even better engine in it. So, and this is where understanding people's psyche, he was emotionally attached to the car and all the stuff, couldn't keep it all. So it's like I started asking questions, not in a rude way. I said, well, what do you think you're going to do with the engine? Well, I don't know. It's just I remember that engine when I was a kid being in Dad's car. Okay, well, do you think you're going to build another car, or what? You got a garage? Like, what are you going to? Oh no, I got like a 1-car garage. I got a Harley. It's kind of packed. Okay, well, what kind of car you want to put that in? That's a pretty serious engine. Oh, I don't know. That's going to be expensive to build a car like that. Yeah, you're right. I don't, And once I started talking him through the steps, he emotionally came down from it. And I kind of put him at ease. I said, look, I know that this is an expensive engine. Like, I'm not coming here to bullshit you guys. Like, we all know. And luckily in this situation, I used to buy stuff from his father. So I said, your dad wasn't selling me stuff because I was a bullshitter. I always used to pay his dad's prices. I would just say, yep, no problem. And then, once I got that out of the air, he goes, well, that engine is that's got to be like a $20,000 engine. I said, 100%. You're right. That's a $25,000 engine easily. And he goes, okay. I said, all right. So I'll pay that. And he's like, what? And I said, well, we have to work all these other parts into the deal if I'm going to pay what you think that's worth. He's like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'm not. He thought I was going to offer $500 for this engine. And I'm like, no, I agree. That's a $20,000 engine. You just got to work with me for all this other stuff. And then I lay it out for these people. Usually it's like, I want that engine for me. And I don't ever bullshit people when I tell them that I want something for me. It's actually for me. And I said, I want that engine for me to build a car around someday. It's beautiful. And I said, I'm going to sell all this stuff here, make a small profit, keep that engine, someday build some high-end car with it. And that's my way of profiting, much larger from that. So he's, oh, okay. So then we started making a deal. And then in the end, I ended up paying basically what he wanted for the engine for everything.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, okay, well, I know you need to make money if you're going to be giving me that kind of money for the engine and the stuff. So it ended up working out great where we got all this fantastic speed equipment and stuff. We found some magnesium wheels in the one shed we didn't know about. And so at first I was like, man, this isn't going to work out. It worked out beautifully because I worked with him and we got that awkward part out of the way where it's like, we all know that's the gold mine out of this whole collection.
And another thing is some of these estates that we deal with, we may not necessarily be buying to make a ton of money, but there's 1 or 2 items in that Matt wants for his personal collection or for a future car. So we make a few bucks, but we're paying what the people want to get like one item that Matt really needs
Yes.
for a project or for one of his cars now, and we're not making hardly anything.
That's called playing the long game, folks.
Yes. 'Cause
So
when we sell that car then 10 years from now and it adds value to the vehicle, it was worth it.
yes, and that's it. And
That's what we call car guy math.
Yeah. Well, it's playing the long game. I mean, it's no different than someone buying a piece of property because they know that it's going to go up in value, or when you buy a fixer-upper house and then you do a bunch of work to it, you know that it's worth a lot more money. So when I pair that engine with the right car and build it with the touches that we like to do, if I sell that thing when I'm old, that's something I wouldn't sell till I was like, very
It's
old.
too loud.
Yeah, but anyways, like some of these cars, we've sort of realized the profits now that we've been doing it a while. Like 5 years later, I sell a car, and we're like, oh, okay, well the engine in that car came from this estate, and that car came from here, and man, that estate paid for that engine. And like sometimes when we're selling a car, the car is the profit. We like broke even, and we're driving the car, and then 5 years from now, when we sell the car, there's your chunk of money for your profit. So like it's playing the long game. I like building cars, so it's also fun to hold the good stuff to put together unique and very cool cars. So that's one way with the stuff when it's a little emotional. Sometimes it's super simple. Like we have one recently that we've been dealing on that the gentleman went and like inventoried almost every part, or most of the major parts we got. So he mailed us like a document that was like, I don't know, 15 pages long.
A Word document that was typed out.
And it was like maybe not every item, but it was like the highlights of the estate, and rough values that he thought that the stuff was worth. And I kind of like that because we're all getting out in the open. He was helping his friend's widow sell the stuff, so he kind of knows the values, and he's sending me a thing and says, look, this, a 35 Ford grill in average condition is worth this kind of money, I think, at a swap meet in this area. And then, again, we're talking and saying, look, we can't pay retail. So we were going back and forth on that state, but this was an instance where this gentleman is older, and he didn't do the cell phone thing. So he gives us a list, and I'm going down the list, and, like, he's telling me that some of the items are duplicates and this and that, blah, blah, blah. So, like, what I was getting from the list wasn't as much money as they were thinking. And then when we talk on the phone again, it's like, oh, well, no, there's like 4 of those grills, not just one. I'm like, well, when you're talking an $800 grill, that changes the price.
Yeah, quantity matters.
Yeah, and it's so, a lot of these are painstaking. They're almost very rarely is there an estate when it comes to negotiating where they call us and go, I want $5,000, you clean out the garage, can you come next week? That almost never happens. It's usually can take weeks or months or
some local ones we deal with are very straightforward, cut and dry. It's usually the ones that are further away, just because of the size of the estate, the amount of people involved with the estate, and like we can't just go look at it. So there's a lot of back and forth that drags it out over months. Because I don't think we've ever done one that we traveled to where it was like we're leaving. I mean, have we ever done any where we got the call and left like right away?
Yes, we've had some. For instance, or very, very quickly, the one we did in Texas, which was a unique one with the Model A stuff.
I thought we were working with that guy for a while.
Wasn't real long because we were dealing with him for a little while, and then he said, well, we need to close the estate by the end of the year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And he said, and it was Mike and I went like the week before Christmas or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was like this estate was a good example. There was some turmoil in the family, and the husband and daughter, the son-in-law and the daughter that were actually the executors, they were fighting with some of the other family members, and there was some, I don't know what was going on, but they were basically, after a multi-year process or whatever was happening, they were trying to sell this ranch in Texas, and this little bit of Model A stuff was holding up the estate to sell the property. And they basically got in touch with us, and they gave us a price that was like not too good to be true, but was like a make it leave now price. And there was like a Model A coupe, tons of Model A parts, the Roadster pickup that we ended up building and put the McCullough in, and on and on and on. There was all kinds of parts, and it was a big ranch.
It's a tractor trailer load, essentially.
Yeah, if you guys remember, we did that one where we hired a tractor trailer, and we didn't fill it, but it made it easier to load all the cars and stuff in. But that one, the guy, basically, I was negotiating the price and this and that, and then he goes, this price, you have to come by the end of the year. We want to close the estate out. If you guys pass on it, we're just going to put it up for the same price locally, and it'll be gone in a day. Crap. Okay. So Mike and I booked the plane ticket, arranged a shipper.
My wife was not happy about this trip.
And we
right before Christmas.
And we went like a week before Christmas, and the whole rule was we had to be back before Christmas. Mike and I ended up getting COVID on the trip, and we were both like dying
yes.
the whole drive home from Texas.
That was a very painful drive home.
But it worked out pretty well. But that was an instance where the estate wanted to just close the estate. They wanted it gone, and we were providing a service by one person coming in, buying it all. We did it all in one day, and what was left, essentially, a scrapper could come in a day and take the rest that was left. I mean, there was a lot of like ranch type stuff that was there. That was just junk and iron, but like we cleared all the cars and the major bulk of parts out of the property. And even if they sold the ranch and left everything there, it was all kind of taken care of. So that some of them are like that. But as far as the pricing goes, I just try and figure out how we're going to solve a problem for them. So again, if it's emotional, we're just going to focus on what items they are having a hard time with, or they are focused on getting the most money for, and we try and get close to that number. And but sometimes it is as simple as someone inherited property, they're involved in it. Sometimes we get in these estates and there's a mess involved with money, or maybe dad wasn't paying the taxes and the property's going to get.
That seems to be the most common.
That's a pretty common one in this hobby obsession that we have, and over my whole entire life, I've struggled with. It's like a drug addiction. Like sometimes you find a deal or you find something and you're like, maybe I don't need to pay rent or the mortgage or the taxes. And sometimes people go overboard and they just stop paying
5 to 10 years of taxes.
Yeah. So imagine grandpa dies, you inherit the property and the contents, but then you get to find out that you have a tax bill from 5 years that hasn't been paid, or
for $15,000 to $20,000.
Yeah, or whatever it is. And these people are trying to get the property without spending their own money, or maybe they don't have the money. They're trying to get all of the debts cleared out. So sometimes we come in there and it's like, we got to come up with 20 grand quick. What will you give us 20 grand for? And we can walk around and, if it's a building full of stuff or there's a car and some parts, and they know that we need to make money. So we, present that to them, and then we figure it out from there. So, and then there's plenty of times where we will go into an estate, and maybe we talked about this in person or on the podcast. I don't remember, but I'm happy to tell somebody, like, you could sell it to me and I got to get it for $5 grand cheaper or 10 grand cheaper because I need to resell it. Or you could put it on Facebook Marketplace tomorrow and ask the same price I'm going to ask and take the time to sell it yourself. And sometimes we'll let families like, look, you could sell this car for $25,000. I need to buy it for 20 or 18 so I can make money. Or you can list it yourself for the 20 or 25, and and you guys sell it. But you got to deal with the people and everything. But we'll buy all this other stuff that's not as easy to sell. And that's why we like to focus on the parts, because in this day and age, it's really easy to sell a shiny car. And if the family wants to sell us the cars and they're okay with the wholesale prices, I'd love to buy cars. But sometimes if that's the item that they're harping on or they're focused on getting the most money for, no problem. You guys could sell it. We're happy to give you as much information as possible to help you sell it for top dollar. And then we just buy the parts, because you need to know the stuff to be able to identify and sell it. And, it's not as easy. So sometimes we will turn down the cars just for that reason.
Or parts even.
Yeah.
Like we go into estates and the dude was into early Fords and Corvettes, or later Ford parts, or no, later like 60s and 70s. And we have some friends that are into those things. We will pass along. We'll buy the early stuff and then pass along our friend or someone else that we know in that business to handle the, say, Mustang parts or
Yeah, we
Corvette
just had
parts.
that. Yep.
Yeah, we'll pass it along to a friend and be like, we're not interested in it, but we have a friend that deals in that business. Does the same thing we do. He needs wholesale prices, but he'll come in and buy everything and just pass it along to them. So the family feels that you're helping them out. We're getting a good deal, but we're also helping them continuously sell stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've done that a lot, and Mike was saying about the 60s Ford parts. We had one that we did in New York years ago and bought a lot of early Ford stuff. There was a lot of Mustang, 60s and 70s Mustang stuff, including NOS, and a guy I know that we see around at the flea markets, and he's a good guy. I see him at auctions. He deals the same way we do, but in 60s and 70s Ford stuff, specifically Mustang. And, I kind of gave him I was his reference, and I said, this guy will treat you right. He'll spend a bunch of money, blah, blah, blah. Well, it took him like a year or two to get up there, but we just saw him at Carlisle, and he said, I went up to that state. I bought a trailer load of stuff. There was some really rare stuff. Thank you so much. So, that was killer. We don't need to buy everything. And
we're not greedy. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that say we are, but we pass, even early Ford stuff, we've gone into estates, bought a bunch of stuff, and just physically couldn't take all of it with us because of time or space.
Yep.
And pass it along to local friends. Be like, hey, we took a bunch of stuff, but there's still plenty of good, great stuff left behind. You guys, here's the lead. Go buy as much as you can.
Yeah, and it makes it even easy in those situations because we already opened the door. Usually we're dealing with the most difficult part of the process because we're usually, sometimes being the first guy into an estate or a collection is the worst situation because there's tons of emotions. There's all kinds of family turmoil. All of a sudden money is starting to be produced from an estate and people start getting greedy. So we've had instances where it's almost, I shouldn't say all, there's a lot of estates we deal with where emotionally and the process for doing it is very difficult because we're the first ones.
We should change that. Not the first ones. We're the first serious ones.
Yes.
Because that also poses a problem because we may not be the first immediate people, but 2 or 3 people have come in before us, weren't serious, wasted their time or gave them a terrible offer.
Or bought stuff for way too cheap and they found out later that they got ripped off and now they're on edge. Yeah, so that makes it difficult for us because we're kind of, people are guarded as they should be. And it can make the process take a little bit longer. So, or make it a little more difficult. But when it gets down to the pricing, it's just figuring out what makes the people selling it the happiest.
Yep.
So, we did the Model A one recently that was in New England, and that one was probably one of the most loose ones I've ever done, where we didn't know what we were buying or what it was going to cost or anything. We walked around the property for a couple hours and still couldn't get a feel of what they were looking for. So then I finally just was threw a dollar amount out, and that's where we kind of joked in the video it was like Supermarket Dash, where it was I just threw a number out because I was okay, they were telling us they needed to fix up this really old farmhouse and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm well, in my head, I'm well, what's a dollar amount? We can't buy all of this today. What's a dollar amount that is substantial to them and us? But I think that in one day we could get enough parts and fill this truck to make some money on the deal. And we had 2 helpers that we had hired for labor for the day. And so I just threw a number out, and they were okay.
Yeah.
It was just a number that they didn't even know what number they wanted to hear until I said a number. And again, I think they had a lot of experience with people coming in there and offering nothing. But then they themselves were also advertising the stuff for an incredible amount of money that it scared a lot of serious people away. So we kind of were just right place, right time. We were the 25th person in there.
Yeah, we were actually, they were trying to sell for a couple of years before we were even known about the place.
And I think we were the first ones to buy a substantial amount. A lot of people had been in and done the hard process of buying 3 items, one item.
One item.
Everybody's standing there and looking at eBay and haggling over, the top dollar prices. So I just set a dollar amount just because I was just throwing something in the air. We need to start somewhere. So I threw out a dollar amount and I said, how about in one day we fill the truck, this dollar amount, and at 5 o'clock, you guys come out, we'll shut the door, I'll hand you that dollar amount, and whether we have 3 items in the truck or we have 3 truckfuls, we just have basically like 6 hours or 8 hours. So when you did the math, how much they made per hour for the time we were there, pretty incredible.
Yes. The other thing you have to put into factor for our prices, you know, as Matt said, for us to make money, is the travel to get there. And box trucks are a lot more expensive to rent than people would think.
Oh, my God.
So for us to rent a U-Haul, typically for a trip from, say, the Midwest back is a minimum of $2,000 to $3,000.
Yep.
And it gets more expensive the further away from home we are. So that has a lot to play in the factor of our pricing, because you typically our travel there with flights, our U-Haul rental back, fuel, hotel, food. Typically we're spending $4,000 to $5,000 just to get there and get the parts back. Not even buying the parts, not even our labor of loading the parts or anything like that.
5 Gs.
Yes.
5 Gs that's just for a hope that we can buy something.
And that's not to flex or anything. That's just that's a number we put on top of whatever we have to pay is what we need to make on top of that to even begin to start making money.
And it's not even the flex. It's like people take for granted what it costs and what it takes to do what we do with buying like this.
Yeah.
Then that's why we're one of the few people that are doing that. Like, that's kind of a little bit of a gamble where you really need to know what you're doing, because if Joe Schmo just randomly, like, there's so many steps for this to be a pain in the ass for a normal person, like booking a flight,
It's
flying
a giant
in.
pain in the ass for us every time.
But we do it like, so we've been doing, and I've been doing it.
We've streamlined the process a lot.
And I've been doing it myself since before we had a business. Like, for me to hop on a plane and go to Europe for a week to go buy a bunch of shit, like, I used to do that all the time. So, like, in the States, it's, like, simple. Like, now with cell phones and travel apps, it's like we book a flight, we go there. We don't even a lot of times book our hotel till, like, the night before in the airport.
Typically, also, while we're driving home, we stop and get dinner and go, how far do you feel like driving tonight? And then we kind of just look and find a hotel and just aim for that. So if you ever send us messages and be like, oh, there's a great hotel here, or you guys are coming into town, stay here, we do not listen to any of that. We fly by the seat of our pants.
We have no idea. But there's so many steps with the flights and getting an Uber and getting a hotel, going to the estate, you know, the rental fees like Mike mentioned.
And just dealing with rental companies. We almost got fucked multiple times with not getting to a rental place and they don't have the truck, or the cats got cut out of the truck the night before.
The catalytic converters are
We'll
missing.
talk about that one day. We should do a story on that Texas trip. There was a bunch of stuff.
That trip was crazy.
Or you get there and they're, we're all out of 26-foot box trucks. We don't have any more. You have to go to this other U-Haul place 20 minutes away. It's just such a clusterfuck sometimes.
So the steps involved, and also, like, when I'm pricing in an estate, we're also looking at how easy or difficult is it to get the stuff out. So, like, if they go, oh, everything's in a paved pole barn, you can back right up, you guys can load it, it's all on shelves, it's organized, I'm happy to pay more money, because it's going to be less labor to load it. It's going to be less labor to unload it because it's going to go in organized. But when we go to these ones where it's like West Virginia, where it was like, oh, well, we have to cut a path through bamboo.
You have to unload it from the building into a pickup truck, drive to the end of the driveway, and then put it into your box truck. You got to ferry it.
Yes, like dozens of times. And, also there's like no electricity, and it's, all these different, or very little electricity, and, all these different factors. And, it's on the top of a mountain, and the weather is completely different there than the base of the mountain. So we're going to get a snowstorm in 2 hours, so you guys better get out of here before the roads get icy. So, like, there's all these, like, factors where that changes it. I mean, it's like anything. Like, if somebody's going to deliver the stuff to my back door, sure, I'll pay more money because I don't have to do all this process. But, like, we have to make the families or the executor or whoever it is, the person who owns the stuff, understand. It's like, anything I'm giving you, I have to spend $5,000 more. And, like, there's an estate we've been dealing with recently in the Midwest that we're probably going to do in the spring, where it was like, I'm kind of explaining to them, like, look, if you got a guy down the street that's going to pay you more, just do it, because I can't I have to add $5,000 on what I'm paying you is what it's going to cost me minimum. So like if you got a guy that can come up even further than that, I can't bid higher just because the cost of moving the stuff. So that's where there's some estates it just doesn't work out because our cost involved and the distance just can't work out, with the numbers. But a lot of times people are they're understanding and willing to work with it. But
Definitely.
it's, that's part of it too. And of course, the time frame changes everything. Because if you tell me that I need to drop everything and I need to go tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, there was an estate we were dealing with that we didn't end up buying. That was that. I think it was the sedan delivery. We were supposed to go buy the sedan delivery, and like a week before, the lady was like, "I need you to come the same weekend we went to get the delivery. I need you to come that weekend to buy this stuff." And Matt went, "It's got to be really cheap to me to fuck over this other deal."
Yeah, and we already had the deal arranged with the family for the stand delivery. So I'm a man of my word. I don't want to we had been working on that for a while. I didn't want to disappoint them and bail because there's all these moving pieces. So I actually offered more money than what the cost she was looking for. If she was willing to just give us a week, I'm like, she was selling the property and there was somebody that had agreed to buy the stuff and I backed off because I did not want to bid on somebody else's deal. And the person was kind of being not very responsive. And she got down to where she was about to close on the property in a week. And she called me and was kind of frantic. And I said, look, I already have this deal. If you would have told me a month ago that you wanted me to, whatever, then I could arrange this. But, that is what it is. And I offered, I don't know if it was $10,000 more or something. And I said, or her higher price.
Yeah.
And I said, if you can just ask the person who bought the property to allow us to come a week from now, I'll send you the deposit, I'll do whatever you need, and I'll come down and get all the stuff. But she needed it gone. She was in a pickle, and the person ended up paying a little less, and I've heard through the grapevine the stuff they got was fantastic, killer deal, but it just couldn't happen. Can't be everywhere. I'm actually, in the end of the day, I'm happier because the sedan delivery, personally for my own collection and for the fun of it, is way more fun, than we could have bought a building full of 32s, 32 parts and, roadster body and whatever else. But business-wise, that was probably smarter. But the stand delivery in the long run will have way more fun putting on the road and all that stuff. So for me, it's not always the money. It's what's going to get the most fun and enjoyment out of it. So, and we'll make money out of the sedan delivery, parts that we got. So it'll work out. But so that's it. If it has to go tomorrow, and I have to change my whole life, we have to drop everything to go somewhere, then it better be so cheap that it's a no-brainer. So that's how sometimes pricing this stuff. A lot of times I look at, man, what are you growling at?
Evil thieves hitting the door.
So with some of the stuff, with valuing the initial question, people asking how to value or price these huge buildings full of stuff, or garages or whatever, or large amount of good stuff. Generally, what I do is we just kind of explain that we cannot value every nut and bolt, kingpin, bushing, doodad, lug nut that's in the place. So we generally just look around at the property if they send us pictures or a list, and you just try and evaluate retail what each of those items are worth. So like when we were looking at the Oldsmobile estate, just because we were talking about that, we talked about the engine. We were like, okay, we're all in agreement. The engine's worth the big chunk of the money. Okay, now there's 10 Oldsmobile speed equipment, aluminum intakes. Let's average them out to being worth $400 a piece. Some are worth $2, some are worth $8. Let's just value it, roughly at $400 an intake times 10. There's that. Okay, there's a LaSalle Trans. There's that. There's 10 frogmouth scoops that, for carburetors that might be worth $50 a piece, but we're not going to go to that level. We're not going to open every box. Let's just look at the higher dollar, easy to sell items, and then you come to a number. And then usually we have to cut that in half because believe it or not, we do have to get paid and make a profit. So in order for us to keep the lights on, Mike needs to get paid. Steve sometimes gets paid.
Surprisingly, he does get paid.
He does get paid, even though he probably would show up even if we didn't pay him.
He did show up for a while and we didn't pay him.
Yeah, it's true. So we do have to make some money, and a lot of people probably don't realize the cost of doing business on the internet is very expensive. I wish I could just sell everything cash in person because it would be much easier and we'd be able to sell things for more affordable. But like, for instance, Mike will probably know fees-wise, like
eBay's on average 12.5. PayPal, anything we sell off of eBay, but still online via like website, credit card, PayPal, any of that stuff is like 3.5 to 5%, depending on the provider or whatever. So any of it you're at least 5%, then you got to ship it and shipping supplies and all that stuff. It compounds on itself. Taxes a lot.
Yeah. So we have to bring all of that into, you have to kind of put that all into perspective. But when you're making an offer, that we're not just, because we bought a $500 item for $250 doesn't mean we're making $250 after it's all said and done. We're making $75 because everybody else has their hand out.
Unless we're doing a cash for, we buy it in cash, sell it in cash. Very rarely do we ever make a true $250 profit.
So that's all part of the, what we have to do to make business. And the way I put it into, try and help people understand when we get people in person that will, give us little jabs or whatever about how cheap we get stuff or, whatever, making money. I say, you're not complaining when you go to Walmart. Like, the people you should be mad at is when you go to Walmart or go to places that they're paying pennies.
They're making 100% markup on everything on the shelf.
And they don't do any, that the process isn't as laborious as it is for us. So, yes, we're making money, but it's not quite as simple as us buying this, one item and making double the money. We're doing a lot of the process. And, like, you're fine with paying that anywhere else in the retail space. People are okay to going to Walmart or going to the drugstore or whatever. And the markups that you're seeing there are way higher than the markups that we're getting for selling these old car parts. So it's interesting when people kind of not attack us, but when they talk shit or say stuff like it's a retail business. That's how it works, and that's kind of like industry standard. Doubling your money after all the costs involved is what you need to do. And I would say in today's market, it's almost tripling your money to really make any kind of real money on something, to do business with all the, because we don't even count like the electric bill, the all the other costs to just keep the property running, property taxes, all that stuff.
Consumables, tools.
Yeah. So we don't get that, we don't get that fine with our accounting on that stuff for every part that we sell, but it does come into play. So a lot of times that's how we do it. You kind of evaluate the really good stuff or the highlighted items in the estate, figure out what the price is. And sometimes, like we were saying with the cars and different things, you go, okay, well, we'll pay retail for all those items, but everything else comes with. And then there might be, so sometimes when you see these truckloads of stuff we get, the best 10 items I paid retail for, and then they threw everything else in. So it's no different than when somebody comes to buy a car and the guy's asking $20,000 for the car and you want to pay 15, and he says, well, if you do 20, I'll give you all the extra parts that I have set aside for the car in the attic. And you go, oh shit, there's $10,000 worth of parts there. Yeah, all right, I'll pay that.
And the other thing people also need to realize is the stuff that we pay quote unquote retail for is good, easy stuff that's very easy to sell, or Matt really wants. The other stuff that they throw in a lot of times we have a lot of it, or it has a lot of shelf time. It takes a while to sell. So it's stuff that's much harder to get rid of, and the family sees that and realizes that. And it's not that we're getting a good deal. It's just we might have to sit on it for a year or two before it sells.
Or we have an outlet to sell it
Yeah.
that most people couldn't. You couldn't You can't just put a banjo rear for a flathead up on Facebook Marketplace and get top dollar for it and sell it in a week.
Yeah.
Like now we sell banjo rears regularly, not super regularly, but like more than the average person because people are coming to us because we know that we have them in stock. They know that we have multiples of them that they can get the pick of what they want, gear ratio, condition, whatever. So we're able to sell stuff that the average person couldn't because we have a business. People are coming to us. So that's what we've created. It's great. We love going to auctions or estates that other people have been in. And we go and we're like, oh, we'll buy steering boxes. We'll buy greasy, heavy items. I know so many people that resell that they're like, oh, I don't buy, I'm not buying steering boxes. I'm not buying mechanical parts. That stuff's hard to ship or it's pain in the ass. We're like, we'll buy it all.
Yeah, that's the shit I love to sell. It's bread and butter, super easy.
It's way easier. The way I think about it is I can fabricate a fender if I have to.
Yeah.
I can't fabricate a steering box as easily as I could a fender or a sheet metal part.
You don't have to fabricate it. You can just go to Speedway and buy a Vega box.
Yes. You could. But if you're not building a car that way. But so a lot of that stuff like a front axle, if you were going for an original old, axle, you can't just make that. You can't come up with it easily. So those are the parts that for us, it's like you can't really recreate them or a guy in his garage can't just make that item. Yeah. So, and that's the stuff you need to build. It's all the stuff that you need to build a car that nobody thinks about or nobody wants to buy, but everybody needs it. So we all need a steering box, we all need axle and spindles and brakes and that's all the bread and butter stuff that we keep in stock.
And we also have the knowledge, not all of the knowledge, but we have some knowledge to help direct people to what they need. Because a lot of times we have customers that come to us with literally zero knowledge of, they know they want to build a hot rod. They have a body, they have a frame, but they don't know anything else. And they've read some stuff online and they come to us with questions on what to buy. It's like, well, no, you can run that, but this is easier. We typically do this. I have one of those I have one of each box in stock, but these are the pros and cons between those items. You make the decision on what you want. I'm just going to give you the information.
Yep.
And we do that a ton.
Yeah, we had even earlier today, we had a customer call us that our friend Pete referred to, who he has a shop and he was doing, he had a customer car and they had a 37 Ford family, an estate car. Family wanted to put juice brakes on it for safety. And he called us and said, I need to do a juice brake conversion on a 37 Ford. Our mutual friend told us that you would have the parts. So we're like, you need 39 pedals, you need these backing plates, we'll give you the grease shields and all the doodads. You go buy the shoes and the wheel cylinders.
These are the shoes that you want. All the wheel cylinders will work. Go to these websites, they carry all the replacement parts.
Yep. So the guy kind of he didn't have to do 10 hours of searching on the internet. We with his purchase, we gave him everything he needed to know. And then now he can just go and do it. So that's where us buying the mechanical parts at these places. And Mike and I have gone to auctions and we're standing there next to all the people that we know that are buying the same kinds of stuff. And we're happy to let people fight over certain things. And then we'll buy the steering boxes or we'll buy the transmissions that nobody wants because we have a way to sell them. Sure, they're not as easy, but we have the infrastructure now to put them on a shelf and sit on them.
And we're also paying fractions of what they're paying for the quote-unquote better item.
Yeah.
And we're still, at the end of the day, we're making the same amount of money, but we're paying pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. So that's kind of part of the thought process behind it. And that's what gives us, when we're negotiating, that's what makes it a little easier because we're not picking the cherries off the top generally. We're taking the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think we get a lot of families that are like, well, we had 10 local guys come in that wanted to buy the one good car out of the estate, and then we're still stuck with all the leftover stuff.
Yeah.
We told the story about buying all the 34 stuff in Michigan. Similar deal. A guy came in and wanted to buy the two best cars off the top. He wanted to pay significantly more than I was paying per car, but he was going to leave them with all the engines and the parts and the pieces of bodies, and they still were back in the same situation where they had to clean the barns out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we are buying car parts, but we're also doing a big service to a lot of families because some of these estates are insanely overwhelming, and they're even overwhelming for us. And this is what we do. You know, they see it as a giant mess, and we're coming in and telling them what's junk, what they could sell to someone else, and we'll take a giant load of it. So it's at the end of the day, we're offering a service.
Right.
We're profiting off of the stuff that we buy, but we're also doing a lot of legwork for the family as well.
Yeah. Now, processing the stuff, you can probably speak on that a little better.
So the way that it kind of is as same as the buying process. Every estate is different on how we handle it. If you've ever bought stuff from us, you may see there's a number written on the item or on the tag. We have a super simple inventory system. It's all in my head. We don't have a computer system, nothing over the top. We organize our parts by rough years or body styles, 32 to 4, some parts interchange. So we have all those items on the same shelf, 35-6, that kind of stuff. So a lot of times when people call, we just walk to the shelf and look. I know roughly off the top of my head what we have just from handling everything. So what I do is we number every estate, super simple, 1 to infinity. I think we're at like 57, 58, something like that.
Since we've started being organized.
Yes, since we've been a quote-unquote business. So I just put a number on it. That way when it sells, this is just super simple business. I have a spreadsheet. I put what we sold it for after fees, and then it all spreadsheet, Excel, math stuff, it all auto-populates to a list. And we can see, I can just drag it across and add up all the columns for every month and say, we paid X amount. We paid $5,000 for everything. Right now we're at $10,000 total, including our purchase price. So we just roughly gauge how we're doing with each estate. Sometimes if we're way into the profit, some parts get cheaper to just move them along and clear the estate out. As far as handling the parts, it's kind of like how we do the valuing of the estate. The really good high dollar items get listed literally right away. So we can recoup some of our money from the purchase. And then we slowly go through the lower value stuff. Some estates we literally photograph and list in the same day or a couple days. Some take Pittsburgh, for example. I still have a pallet of stuff. We need to go through them 3.5 years later.
Yeah, so and a lot of the stuff, we generally, you'll see, the reason we do the unloading videos is kind of because that's how we need to kind of do that regardless when we unload an estate, because we kind of go through and the stuff usually doesn't go in as organized as we'd like. So we want to go through and either pick the stuff out for myself or for the business that we're going to put away for future builds, or stuff that maybe we know we want to sell right away. So by doing those unloading videos, we're able to spread everything across the floor.
And because when we're doing the videos at the estate, stuff can be, I just got kicked, so chaotic. I am playing cameraman, we're loading, identifying stuff. We're all doing multiple things, so sometimes the filming isn't the best because we're jockeying between doing all this different stuff. So sometimes when we do the unloading videos, we're getting a much broader view of what we got, because sometimes the estates are filled with stuff we didn't buy, cars and other parts, or a crazy collection, or it's a long trip and there's multiple stops. So the unloading video is much more in detail of what we got, and we sell a little behind the scenes. We sell a ton of stuff from unloading videos.
Yeah, it's kind of our way of doing a
flash sale,
type thing. So we're selling to you without selling to you. So that's and if anybody's watched or followed our business model over the years, I came from a world of working at Eastwood that was very pushy, high sales, in your face. You get 16 emails a day, and it's like guerrilla marketing. Great, that works. It's proven to work. We're the opposite. Because of maybe being in that world, I'm super laid back. So for us, we're going to do an unloading video. It's fun to watch if you don't even plan to buy anything. But if you're into this stuff, you watch the unloading video, like, oh, he's got a 32 XYZ. I need one of those. They quick email us, and it just streamlines the process, so that way we're not the person doesn't have to wait to see it on eBay or on our store.
Because sometimes some unloading videos is we literally unload it and then we just put it all on pallets and stash it away because we don't physically have the time or space to go through it. Because another part of going through all the parts is that you literally have to make a giant mess to go through stuff sometimes. Because, like, say you have a matched pair of panels, you know you ended up with 2 of them, but you bought a 26-foot box truck load of shit, and you have one, but you can't find the other. So now you have to, like, well, let me put this off to the side so I can find the left side. And then that compounds itself 30 times over a week, and then you got shit all over the floor because you're trying to make pairs.
Yeah, it makes it difficult. So that's there's always as much as we seem like idiots, and we are, there is a tactic behind some of this. So the unloading video, it's entertaining to watch because it's like watching an unboxing video.
Yep.
You're unboxing the box truck. You're also selling to you.
I mean,
in a little
the
way.
picking videos or the estate videos themselves are the exact same thing. We're just the unloading. We're showing you basically everything we bought.
Yeah, so it makes it nice because we can. We have a lot of local people that will see something, text Mike or myself, or call
just
us,
show up,
or just show up and say, "I just saw the video this morning. Did anybody buy that XYZ? I want it." And
also, that is not a please don't just show up. Please call us first.
Generally, we frown upon that, and if you catch us in the wrong mood, it's not for sale. Especially me, if I'm in a bad mood because you just showed up or whatever, it's not for sale. I'm keeping it now.
Yeah, not for sale. It's going in the private collection.
Yeah, so that's why we do that. But to tackle it all, it's very difficult. We haven't figured out we're still evolving our process.
And I don't think there isn't a perfect way to do this process without having a team of 10, 15 people and 1 million square foot to lay everything out, go through it, and perfectly catalog it, put it on a shelf with a barcode that goes to a system and all that stuff.
Yeah, and we get people that oftentimes are trying to be helpful and email us or tell us like, hey, you guys really need to get an inventory system and hire a person to be an inventory person. Like, okay, so if I hire the person that's an inventory person and pay them $70,000 a year or whatever the pay is for that, and then we have to pay for the inventory system, and again, back to the offering half, we now have to offer a third because now I got to pay for all this extra shit.
And the other thing is that works for new goods, that the condition is the same for everything. Every item, if we have 300 of the same item, all 300 items are in different condition. They might have a scratch different here or there, and everyone has a different form of good to use.
Yep.
So some guys are cool with using really rusty, pitted stuff. Other guys want perfect mint items. So you can't inventory it because everything's different. So you just go to the shelf and find the nicest one.
Yep.
And that's how we sell things. You sell the nicest item, and then we might list a slightly less nice item for a little bit less money to give 2 options on our website. But we might have another 15 of those items we have to sell at some point.
So at least with moving into the new building, we've figured out a process a little better. Now, while some customers may get upset with it, they will email us and say, hey, do you have XYZ? And we might say, no, we don't have one, because it's on a pallet, shrink wrapped, put away, and we got into a little bit of a problem at the warehouse where we had unlimited space, where Mike was trying to help every customer, so he'd cut a pallet open, dig for that one part you were asking for. Now that pallet's a mess. Well, he does that every day with every estate. Now we have 200 pallets that are all
half gone through.
Yeah, half gone through. So now what we've done is we keep the pallet wrapped up. We go through one pallet and we list everything on that pallet. So somebody might get upset and say, I called you last week and you said you didn't have that. Now you just listed it and it's sold. It's like we try our best to like get back with somebody if they tell us they're looking for something, but
it's still only basically 2 people.
Yes.
Moving, I mean,
it's one person and then I help occasionally.
Yes. We move say 2,000 parts a year. So put that into a grand scheme of things. We move a lot of parts for a very small company.
Yes.
Very small staffed company.
Yes. Just basically Mike.
Yeah.
It's Mike, and then now that we have the new building, I'm
and
helping.
Ryan occasionally, 1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah, we have our part-time helper. So very part-time. But we, that's just the way that it works, and we're trying to get better at it. But that's what seems to work, and we're trying to get better at. Mike keeps a list, so if you call or email and say you're looking for a part, and he thinks we might have it on a pallet, we may try and, like, in the next following week, go through that said pallet.
I just did it the other week, all that 46.8 stuff. We had a guy continuously looking for some splash pans, and the new building was so full I couldn't physically get it with a forklift. But it got to the point where I could move it with a forklift and get it down, so let's go through that pallet, find the guy his parts, and then we'll list the rest of that pallet.
And that's the best way to do it. So we apologize if there's something that's really cool that you want and you see it in a video and the video was from 3 months ago and it's put away. When we get to it, we'd be happy to tell you, but we just can't. We can't be picking with our space constraints now. We can't be ripping open every pallet. So that's just the way it works. And then as the stuff goes out, we also are kind of looking at when we're bringing inventory in these huge loads. When we're at the estate, you're kind of trying to decide sometimes, do we keep it, do we leave it? And sometimes we bring stuff home and we get it home and we're like, oh man, this was worse than I thought it was. So we're making split-second decisions of like, keep it.
And Matt's also, how many of these do we have? How many of these do you have? And most of the time I can remember, I got a shelf full of those. We don't need any more. So a lot of times at estates, we're also doing that. Like, I already have a shelf full of backing plate, or not backing plates is a bad example because we sell a lot of them.
Inner fenders.
Yes, or like front fenders. Some sheet metal's hard to move sometimes. I got 5 pairs of front fenders. We don't need more.
And then, or we'll get it home. I guess what I was getting at is it's maybe worse than we remembered, or we go and walk over to the shelf and there's 5 fenders in better shape, and that one's pretty rough, and we sell 2 fenders a year. Yeah. We're like, okay, well this fender will be 10 years from now. While we'd like to keep everything and save every scrap of Henry Ford metal, we can't. And we either sell it for really cheap or sometimes it goes right in the scrap trailer.
Why'd you have to say it?
Sometimes it goes in the scrap trailer. But don't worry, there's plenty of scavengers at the scrapyard that after we drop it, the scavengers come in and take it, and then it's at the local flea market anyways for sale. So it all works out in the end. It's the circle of life.
So that's pretty much it for our process of buying and selling. It's pretty... The buying end of it is much more convoluted and difficult.
Yeah.
The selling is fairly straightforward. Our system is ancient and we're just by memory. Is there anything else really?
Well, I guess for the inventory, to give us some credit, we now have on our website anything that's for sale publicly. It has been photographed and listed for sale. You can go on our website and you can shop it like a normal store.
Yep.
You can search on our website by keyword, and it will bring up all of those parts. So if you search 1932, it'll bring up everything that is for sale for 32 Ford. So we're trying to get, with Mike and myself tackling it both now, we're trying to get a lot more items photographed and listed for sale so that there's more stuff that you can just go on the site, search it. We will never be as good as a Amazon or a site like that where you can, everything. But like, at least we're trying to get as much stuff up for sale as possible, and you can shop our website
and put multiple options of like a dashboard. Have one that's perfect and mint, and then you have one that's someone wants to cut up to put in a hot rod.
Yeah, so that we've definitely improved over the years. We're using our website as kind of our inventory system, so to speak. And then all the other stuff that we haven't listed, that's back stock. So all the stuff you see on the website, if it says it's available, it's for sale, it's available, and you can buy it like you would anywhere else. If it's something big, you'll have to get a shipping quote, but like that's no different than some other websites that you big heavy items or you're overseas, you got to get a quote.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's kind of the process. That's as much as we could give in a hour or whatever this was. We could talk for hours and hours about getting really into pricing the estates and whatever, but that's kind of how we do it. A lot of it, like we said, it's the emotional aspect of it is more important than the dollars and cents. Is figuring out what the seller wants to get out of it emotionally. Dollars, it's pretty easy to figure out people once you just let them talk to you and tell you what they need. And it works out. So everything's great, and you make $1 million, and we're all prosper. And
yeah. So if there's any other podcast topics you would like us to cover, please, obviously, since this is audio only, send us an email or a message on social media. We would love to cover a topic. We try and come up with these as organically as possible through conversation. But if there's a topic you'd like to hear us bullshit about for an hour and a half, please let us know. We love any of these ideas. We love to, sit down and chit chat about. So thanks you guys for listening. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. We really do appreciate it. As always, give us a review if you're listening to this, or subscribe on Apple or Spotify, any of those outlets. If you give a review or subscribe, it helps us get more people listening, and we can continue to do these. And hopefully there'll be a lot more fun topics to chat about. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
See you.
See you later.